All right. Talk about some longs today. You know what's funny? These reg show names have been a theme for the past couple months, but really reg show names have been popping since 2023. And yeah, I mean these reg show multi-day runs, right? IVP, Zap, Zap dumping today on low volume. AMIX, right? So AMIX was interesting. That remember I had the market open long on this day, and then I had a long on this day, right? We'll go over the long. I was not in the market open long. This was really low volume, and I'm not one to really chase green candles. This was a pure bookmap read. I did full disclosure. I only did 5,000 shares. It's kind of very small size because it was just oh god, I'm on SERV. I'm sorry, I'm moving my bookmap around because what do you call it? It was just to test out because this was the idea behind this entire trade was aggressive algo dump. If we actually look at the book map, this dump was almost instantaneous, right? Which, unsurprisingly, that these reg show MDRs have these overly aggressive algos on them. But the thing is, they just put so many bids on this thing. I was like, dude. And the thing about some of these aggressive dump patterns, if you actually test the aggressive dumps that squeeze, a lot of times the low of the dump ends up being the low of the play. Now, my kind of thought process on this was it squeezed that multi-day high today at 183. Up only squeeze, right? So usually up only squeeze past the key liquidity level is not it's not good for longing a pullback, right? Because usually the liquidity move's already happened. And a lot of times you're just chasing bids off of support. They don't go anywhere, and you lose money, right? So usually not a good thing. But I always think that the best longs, and this SERV also applies it, is the best longs always have some type of external factor attached to it, right? So in Amex's case, it's these reg show multi-day runners been working a lot of liquidity, especially after kind of the market open long pattern kind of took a back seat. A lot of liquidity over the past couple of days have been in these like silo, these multi-day runners, right? Like, and a lot of times they're on reg show, but you can kind of see where the long liquidity is flowing into. You know, day one low floats have not been popping, right? If anything, they're just like almost instant. Look at like Sido, like instant pre-market shorts. But if you're longing, it's important to pay attention. Like, hey, what types of moves are happening, right? Is it penny runners? Is it market open longs? Is it reg show? And what's nice about reg show is I never have shares because either brokers don't have any or they're super expensive. So it's actually very easy to not be short these things. But yeah, I mean, we'll look at the bid manipulation. I posted this in the room right away. I usually just sell. You know, this is kind of like a classic retrace because the bearish pattern would be, for example, that's pretty common, is a bid prop. Like, look at like EPOW, right? Where you get a big push, you get a big pullback, and it starts higher lowing, kind of like swiping some lower highs on the 1 minute, and it pulls. So I was actually kind of worried about that. I was like, you know what? I'll just take some off in the 170s. That's like a 10% move. And I'll just hold the rest for high day because we have, obviously the intraday high day, we have $2. So I was like, those are all key levels. Let me hold for those levels. Obviously, it actually ended up squeezing super aggressively to these key liquidity levels. And I learned from a lot of these market open high volatility longs that the more aggressive it kind of pushes past key liquidity levels, the more aggressive you need to be in taking your sells, right? So, I mean, crazy volume, crazy manipulated dump, right? And this also goes to show that, like, it's the same thing with AMIX, back on my market open long video, right? Where it has these very counterintuitive entries, like market open long structure, the down halt into the squeeze, right? A lot of these plays in low float land and reg show land, the big profit potential is always going to be on the counterintuitive entries, right? And a lot of times, something you have to train yourself in doing is there are moments, depending on the volume, depending on the structure, depending on what you're trading. You always have to consider the context of the play. But this is a great market open long structure, like great. Also, it had that like high day clear out that it did, instant dump, right? I already made a video about this, but when this move happens, it still has a ton of space to rotate back into, right? So it makes sense to think, hey, maybe this down halt, because it's closed below 75 cents, you're going to get tight halt bands, right? Maybe this down halt is a trap. Let me look at the bid structure after the down halt. And of course, I was already in long from before that, but I should have did. A problem I have are these follow-up longs, right? Like this would be a follow-up long off of the lower high paint, right? Lower high paint. Get under VWAP, squeeze right onto 1 minute 52. By the way, I always say, when does the 1 minute 50 and the 1 minute 20 really work for longs, right? Early in the move. At points in the move where either, volume is just coming in, or in this case, like a hyper aggressive, like algo short trap, you know what I mean? The higher and higher it goes, for example, the 1 minute 50 here, this fails, right? This one works, this one fails, right? You often see the same MA get abused in that way. Of course, there were 0 shares of short. Man, like speaking of shares of short, man, ever since these T+1 changes, brokers, especially trade 0, but I heard even other brokers have gotten quite expensive. You could definitely see how these hard to borrow brokers are increasing prices on their shares. In my opinion, to mitigate the risk of these T+1 changes, right? They're trying to charge more to protect themselves, right? So anyway, and this would be a secondary entry, right? Especially when this started rotating. Anyway, we'll look at the book really fast on this. This was like an insane book. So again, I'm not really logging into the green candles. Massive knife, huge bids, empty book to the upside, but most importantly, the reg show MDR, right? That extra external factor that makes it really bullish. And then this is that pullback to the 1 minute 50. Look at the 1 minute 50 bid get held. You have a few bids down here. That's always nice to see. But the main bid at the main bid at a key area, right? Especially as it's getting, walked down. You can see a clear controlled selling here. Walk down to these bids. Lower high, lower high, lower high. Tons of empty room on the book. Bid follow up right where this consolidation and these highs were, these lower highs were. And yeah, it just great secondary entry. Could have actually, put the play was probably to put more on and then add more on the rotation, right? I think that's when it comes to longing, I think that's going to be my big kind of next leap, is understanding secondary entries when the structure is still intact, right? Where you have a thesis of why it might work, right? In this case, I just thought this was like, look how instantaneous this dump is, right? A lot of the best longs happen after, I mean, this one is extremely, like, very, very extreme. But, what do you call it? A lot of times you'll see this on, like, a smaller range time frame, right? You'll see, like, a lower high that has a quick dump into a bunch of bids, right? Really nice to see. And, yeah, I just sold into high day, and then I was like, oh, they stalled it at 2 here. So I was like, oh, I'll hold for 2. I'll hold more in my position for 2. Sold into 2. And then at this point, not a lot of bids following. There wasn't a lot of bids following this up to begin with. But now after the 2 swipe, I was tempted to sell everything into here, but I was like, oh, let me wait for a 2 squeeze. Fake whole dollar resistance. I talked about fake half dollar. We're going to talk about fake whole dollar resistance on SERV, right? And the scalp longs I did on that play. But I sold this, and once this big ass came in and the 1 minute, started cracking towards the 1 minute 20, I was like, I'll just protect my profits and get out. And yeah, look at this. The 1 minute 50 rotation. This stalls, bids getting pulled, big ask, starts pulling back, ask starts following it down. pretty bearish stuff. And then we'll talk about, so that's the whole trade on AMIX, and the other one is SERV. SERV, I had only longs. Let me pull up. There was a few longs, but actually kind of added up because the range was kind of so insane. Where is it? SERV. I had a few dumb trades, by the way. I had a few dumb. I realized these were kind of dumb chases. I'll go over these trades later. This is I got stopped out at like 5 cents, and then I got stopped out on like something like 10 cents or something. But we're talking about oh my god, this book was insane. First of all, I did not know early on that this was NVIDIA buying 10% of the company news. Insane news. And we I mean, this is the type of news that can really push a stock. And not to mention, look at this, like recent IPO, completely empty book to the upside. You know, I think I talked about this when I did my AIEV market open long. I was like, dude, there's nothing on this to the upside, man. It's it's such a nice bullish factor to know that there's no trading history in combination with like high volume, nice structure, like that type of thing. So again, I wasn't really prioritizing this play. I was looking at mostly just AMIX, right? So and by the time it started rotating, so it starts rotating with a bunch of volume. And dude, these thicker float institutional ownership, high institutional ownership plays, or especially just the news like NVIDIA taking 10%. You know, if NVIDIA's taking 10%, you know other funds are going to want to get in, right? And the bids and everything about this, I just got to show you the book on this play. It was this was like one of the most insane books I've ever seen. And not to mention easy to borrow stock, so short sellers are going to get really aggressive. You know, it's one of those ironic things where the more shorts available and the more short participation there is, the stronger a stock is, and the less shorts available and the less short participation, the weaker a stock is. More shorts equals stronger. You know, a lot of people think the opposite. A lot of people think stocks go down because a short seller's pushing it down, which is pretty funny, which is actually pretty funny because it's often short covers that are propping a stock up at support. People never think about that. It's like, you know, shorts have to cover, right? Anyways, what do you call it, man? So it started rotating, and they started putting these. By the way, this little liquidity marker is pretty cool on Bookmap. You can go to your settings, you can go to configure add-ons, and you can turn on liquidity marker. It's the same thing that shows up on the right side, but it kind of populates in real time. It's a nice visual thing to kind of see. But yeah, man, I mean, look at this, like big bid, obviously hyper aggressive move, right? But the news is insane. The volume even under at market open was like 1 million per minute, 1 million per minute. So a lot of accumulation. You can actually kind of see all the buying that went on over here, right? Just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of shares being accumulated at 4. And they start rotating it. I said this before about big bids showing up. Now, I saw this bid in real time and this bid, and I did not act on any of it. I think if I saw the NVIDIA news, I'd just be like, you can make those exceptions because of the float, because of the news, because of the volume, right? There's those special situations where you can make exceptions to like what you would normally do, and you could see the bigger picture, right? But I didn't do it. I was just like, oh, thick float play. I don't want to chase off of a single bid. That being said, if you are going to long off big bids, it shouldn't stall for like more than a couple minutes, right? The reaction should be relatively fast, right? You wouldn't want to see like a big bid show up and have like 5-10 minutes of stalling. Like we saw that on Silo yesterday, right? Now that bid got pulled and it ended up rotating back up, but overall, if you're gonna be longing off some crazy 90,000, 100,000 share bid, you're gonna want a reaction. You're gonna want a pretty fast reaction. You don't want the bid to be respected, and you're gonna want it to go up. And if you're gonna see stalling, or maybe like ass getting filled and stalling, it's not good. Really not good. But yeah, I mean, look at the bid file. You could have longed, and people in my room are smacking this like, in the 470s and the low fives. Like they were longing off this bid follow up because we all saw the volume, we all saw the book, and oh my god, it just started ramping. That being said, going back to the chart here, so the first long scalp is after. I mean, look at the volume. The volume's the most important thing. You know, the more I talk to people, the more, especially when their trade selection isn't the best, oftentimes they're focusing on candlesticks over the volume, right? Where really, and I've said this before, you should look at volume first. You're looking at volume first, and then you're looking at candlesticks, and then you can look at things like the book and also just external things like reg show, or in case of like a thicker float name, thicker floats, you definitely want to look at news. You know, sometimes I have people come up and tell me, it's like, oh, what do you think about this news on, for example, like on Sido? I'm like, I don't think of anything about the news. I don't even need to look this up on Sido. Why would I? It's Sido. I don't need to look this up. But something like SERV, you should absolutely. This was a huge mistake by me. I just told myself I wasn't even going to trade this. Therefore, I'm not even going to look at the news. And it ended up being like one of the most insane, like bullish news, bullish chart plays that we've seen in a little bit, man. This has multi. I mean, look, from a multi-day runner perspective, this still has like $9 painted here. They could still rotate this in the. I mean, look, they're rotating right now. I mean, I wouldn't want to be making any long reads here, but you know, in terms of after hours potential, in terms of Monday, Tuesday multi-day runner potential, I mean, they can on these strong names. They can paint liquidity levels, and they can just come back to them for more pushing. So anyways, huge miss off the bids off this run up. And look at that. Like that first bid showed up at like 450. This went straight up to 620. And that was just on the 1 minute 9. That's not even talking about the rest of this. Anyways, my first long was this high day clear out on crazy volume, right? Crazy consistent increasing volume. On this thicker float play, right? So that is potentially is a bullish factor. And look at these lower highs, super controlled under 6, not letting 6 get swiped, right? 6, 6, 6, roll over, right to the 1 minute 50. I would look at the 1 minute 20. 1 minute 20 got cracked. Look at the 1 minute 50, like gets closer here, taps it here. This was actually either here, because you could count this as the second test of support, or on this little dip and rip. Probably much better entries, right? Making reads at support here, making reads at support here. Much better entries. And not only that, Mikey Underdog, I was talking to Mikey Underdog while this trade was happening, and he's like, oh, there's all these like 30, 40, 50K bids showing up on not DX feed route. So DX feed is the feed I use for my book map. So a lot of times there'll be 50K bids you can't see on the book that are there, right? Because they're using ARCA routes, they're using different routes that aren't showing on this. And he was telling me about over here, there's a big one. It got filled. And then when this started rotating, they put it up again, and it started pushing. I was like, and of course, Mikey was longing down. He was doing the actual, like the actual entry. But I was like, oh man. But what I did, the entire scalp move was, I saw the $6 paint, and I saw this ass. Some of these asks were getting pulled, and I saw the pullback to the to this bidder in the 580s. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna long. Because I saw this soak, I saw 580 get respected down here. I'm like, I'll just long in the 590s, risking this guy. And I'm just hoping that when this pushes 6, it's just going to keep pushing. And actually, it broke 6, pulled back a little bit. So my stop is down here. And then I sold everything in the high day. I just did it because I'm longing all the way at the top, right? Because the thing is, even if you're longing, even if the stock is going to keep pushing, a lot of times they'll pull it back and swipe. Now, my 580 never got actually attacked on this play. I think it held the entire time, right? But you never know that, right? Like here, 590s. So it actually held the entire time. But you never know that for sure. If you're longing at the top, a lot of times I'm just taking the move in the high day. And keep in mind, at this point, I still don't know the news is the NVIDIA news. I'm just like this. And I talked about this before, that this is like the first real structure after the big increasing volume comes in. A lot of times this has the most potential to squeeze shorts, right? Especially on an easy, this was like an easy to borrow name for the most part. The first structure after big increasing volume, this always, and it's doing high declare short trap. They're holding down $6 on purpose. We got some nice soaking on the 1 minute 50. You know, this is one on 1 minute 50 long has the most potential to work. Also thicker flow play. I was just like, I'm not going to short this. This thing looks insane. And anyways, I just caught that little move, and then I pass. So in low float land, this would actually be a fantastic short. If this was like a low float piece of shit stock, like this would be a great short, right? Because you have an aggressive liquidity squeeze off the 1 minute 50. They pull it back down to the 1 minute 50. You have this 650 lower high. It gets broken. It stalls, it rolls over. And low float land and higher low. This would be great. I said to my tips, I was like, I didn't take this because the problem with like thicker float, like high volume, high IO plays is that it's not that the entry doesn't work. Because obviously, look at this. It swipes 650s, stalled below high day, starts to roll over. It's not that the entry doesn't work. It's the fade potential, right? A lot of people hyper-focus on entries, but they don't consider what the profit. And this works, by the way, with longs or shorts, right? Longs and shorts this works on. Like, what, based on the structure and the volume, what is the profit potential on these plays, right? And on a fake 5 minute flag pattern, especially on the same MA that it worked on the last time, again, I still don't know what the news is on this play. I wish I did, because this is your classic long trap and short trap, right? Here's, you fake them out on the 5 minute flag. They swiped $6 here, and then and by the way, the most interesting moment was this rotation, right? These like mini clearouts that are really far away from highs. Man, like I saw this happen, and I was on voice with Mikey, and I saw this rotate, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then and I was like, oh, I'm not trading it, dude. I caught my one little scalp. I don't want to try too many times. It's getting extended. Again, I don't know what the news is. I was like, it's getting extended, and Mikey's like, dude, I'm in. And it just goes straight. It goes on a massive run. I was like, dude. I'm so dumb. Really dumb. The other trade I took, funny enough, is this trade. The 1 minute 50 walked out. Again, massive parabolic. And by this point, I knew what the news was. So I found out about the news somewhere around here. I was like, oh, it's NVIDIA news. I was like, I think it was while it was kind of doing this like mini parabolic here. I was like, I opened it up. I was like, no way. I was like, this is the hottest stock of 2023, 2024, disclosing that they have a 10% stake in this company that has no trading history. This isn't, everything about this is kind of nutty, kind of insane. And man, like institution, I always say, institutions are people like NVIDIA, like, especially institutions that will follow NVIDIA's buying decisions. They buy based on catalysts. They see a catalyst they like, and they go in hard. That's why watch how Qualmagi trades his swing longs. Like, he's always tracking those catalysts, right? Because in that type of market, it matters, right? It really, not in low float Saito market, not in this market, but in when you have like a real company, catalysts matter. Catalysts do matter. So I was like, man, the fact that I didn't check this all the way until here was just a massive mistake. But yeah, here we go. Get down here. Funny enough, $8 paint again. This is the same long. This is the same long. $8 paint, right? Massive quick dump. $8 paint quick dump, right? A lot of rotation space. 1 minute 50. This is the case where I made an exception. Usually you would not want to be longing off the 1 minute 50 this high up in the range. You would not want to be doing it because the short trap potential is so high, right? It's so high. But After I factored in NVIDIA news, I was like, you could just like, why not just be perma bullish to this, right? If the book is looking nice for the long, and we'll go over this really fast. Let's see where it's at. This is the long trap and the short trap. This is this thing. Okay, here. What they did is they swiped this $8 ask, pulled it back into a triple bid follow up, and I'm just like, I'm gonna. I was like, and at that point, I saw the NVIDIA news. Is like, I'm just gonna long this in the 790s. I'll risk down into 780s. Very tight risk. Nothing really below the book all the way down. I don't want to risk down here. I was like, dude, this is just, a lot of shorts hitting this 8 level. A lot of longs might be taking some profits. They sell. You see this a lot. We saw it on the $6 play, right? We saw how you get these like almost like micro sell-off candles. God, what am I looking at here? You get a 6 break, and you'll see the tape dip because shorts are pressing all their buttons. And if that soaks with bid follow up, it could be extremely nice. Man, tons of games on this play. But yeah, I mean, I like that $8 S got taken out. You get the quick little sell off in the bids, and I just sold in the high day again. And then I did, and then what I did, I was like, oh, let me try practicing a short at the top, because what I saw was this move, this hyper aggressive move, the high day into all these ask up here, and I was like, oh, let me put some on in the 870s up here. Let me put some on. And then what was happening is it started doing this high type flag. And I thought to myself, oh, this is a type of ticker where a high type flag might actually work. Maybe it just high type flags up a couple 100% and just like it starts ramping and ramping. And then I was like zooming out and I was like, oh man, the book above 9 is super empty. And we have painted lower high, double top at 9, painted lower high, which is the kind of the whole long trap and short trap rotation. I was like, let me have like 5-cent risk on this. And I got stopped out on this push here, right? This little push here. And then they knifed it with this bid follow-up. I'm like, oh man, maybe this is the real rotation. Let me submit. And Mikey and I were still in voice on this. I was like, let's get in on this one. And he had a huge trade. Even though we messed up on this, I was still green on the trade. He was massively green on the trade. He did a nice job. And yeah, this is a good example of big bid, painted $9 level. This should go. Instead, what happens is it starts pulling back, and we start getting ask following down. I was like, I'm just gonna risk 850, and so funny. I tried a long, tight risk, got started out. Tried a short, got stopped. Tried a long, got stopped. And I was like, all right, like, you know what? Let me just, even if this keeps pushing on a multi-day runner perspective, like you can see all the games we're playing. Like, look, 90,000 shares showing up right here. Who knows what's gonna happen in this play? This play's insane. True multi-day runner, crazy potential. We'll see if that $9 level gets attacked. But yeah, I mean, long video, but SERV. Just caught a few scalps on it, really. But yeah, getting back to my daughter's waking up. Getting back to this, like these painted lower highs at like whole dollar, half dollar. If they pull back to key MA levels, right? 1 minute 50 here and here, right? And you start to see bid follow up. You start to see double, triple taps of support. You start to see rotations. You start to see on a rotation. You start to see more bids coming up. It could be nice, man. And once I saw the NVIDIA news, I was like, I would normally never taken something this high for the scalp, but yeah, and that's about it. It was pretty nice. And then I had something. I don't even VRPX. I actually tried the 1 minute 20 tap off of this once this candle knifed into some bids and it started rotating. I only caught a little bit. I only sold a little bit up until like the 220s, and this high to clear out was so fast, and then I got stopped out on the higher lows, so it ended up being like a break-even trade, right? was kind of hoping this would hide a clear out short trap and rotate, but that was just a tiny little trade that didn't. But this type of thing was happening. SLRX yesterday, another just volume picks up, they swipe high day, pull. WNW 2 days ago. Volume, real volume, I don't really consider this to be real volume. Real volume picks up, high day swipe, and pull. So pretty common 3 days in a row of kind of these intraday runners that gives like one little, volume comes in, gives one little push, pulls. Was trying to factor that in. But I was hoping it would actually push a little bit past high day. It like tapped high, VRPX tapped high day for like a split second, and then just started knifing. So, anyways, no shorts because all these tickers apparently have like infinite. The price of these shares is so high, or it just not available at all. Especially these reg show names. So, all right, that's it for today. Hope that was informative. Really didn't see any reason to short this, especially being easy to borrow. All these shorts just getting in way too early on this name. Just look, shorts, easy to borrow names where it's a massive percent move, and they just trade the gapping percentage and the easy to borrow, and they reserve a bunch of shares. Like, kind of it kind of shows you how those oversimplified kind of strategies can come back to bite you on names like this. And a big part I think of getting better at trading is learning to avoid, like, why this is bad, not in terms of entry, but in terms of how far it's going to fade down, right? Understanding the structure of the volume, and of course the catalyst on this name. So anyways, that's it for today. Crazy long video. Did not think it'd be this long. So that's it, and you guys have a good one. See ya.